Hi all, welcome to i-tutor Academy. In today's session, we will start with the Unit 9 subsession 5 of Mmpc 009, that is generation of capacity plans. In last video, we already discussed from Unit 9, first subsession onwards, and this is fifth subsession of Unit 9. Okay. And once the capacity requirements have been worked out, alternate capacity plan listing the size and timing of capacity addition can be generated. If the capacity available does not match the capacity required in any year, the capacity plan also mention whether alternate sources of capacity will be used or whether the plan is prepared with the possibility of loss sale. And size of capacity increments when there is a growth in predicted demand of product. The important question is how much of capacity has to be added and when. Two strategies for capacity addition could be easily formulated, that is add capacity in small increment but more often, and add large capacity increment but less often. Okay, so this is the two strategies for capacity addition. And two other related options are add capacity before the requirement exceeds the capacity available, and add capacity after the requirement has overtaken the availability capacity. Of course, one can have mixed option such as adding a large capacity increment so that the available capacity is much in excess of the likely demand. And however, as the demand is continuously growing, it will soon overtake the available capacity and then add another large increment of capacity. An alternate source of capacity we have seen above, the capacity of any facility also depends on the intensiveness of use. Therefore, a manager has access to a higher capacity without really building additional capacity by increasing the intensiveness of use. And this includes alternatives like overtime, holiday work, and additional shift work, etc. And there is further possibility of subcontracting a part or all of the transformation processing to outsiders and have access to their capacity as well. And however, for specialized and sophisticated processing, subcontracting may not be feasible, and similarly for process industries working around the clock, and it may not be possible to increase the intensiveness of use. And by making use of these alternate sources of capacity, one can reduce the cost of carrying a high capacity along with reducing the risk of not using the capacity built. An alternate capacity plan may have capacity gaps which would be met from these alternate sources of capacity. And cost volume relationship, for a given capacity, unit cost of production decreases with the higher volume as the fixed cost gets spread over a large volume. However, near the capacity limit and marginally above the normal capacity, the unit cost increases as the variable cost per unit starts increasing due to higher cost involving overtime, holidays, work, and subcontracting, etc., as well as the effect of general congestion at the workplace and of requirement equipment. In effect, therefore, the unit cost of production will have the shape of U, with the minimum being somewhere near the normal capacity established. And economies of scale, a higher capacity plant offers some economies of scale, and it is worthwhile going in for greater automation only in a high capacity plant. This coupled with more sophisticated technology enables a large capacity plant to produce at a lower variable cost per unit, although the fixed cost of production is much higher. And the combined effect of these is that a lower unit cost can be achieved in a larger capacity plant. And there are other economies of scale as well, and with the increase in capacity, the increase in investment is inventories in is less proportional. Example, a 100% increase in capacity would require an increase of about 40% to 50% in investment in investment in inventories, giving rise to an economy of scale. And similarly, in many process industries, the capacity increase as per the volume of pressure vessels, pipes, tank, etc. And whereas construction costs vary as per the surface area of the same, giving rise to an economy of scale in construction cost. Lost sale, an alternative to meeting the capacity requirement through additional capacity or alternate sources is to absorb some low scale sales. And however, lost sales always amount to losing some market share. This is very risky alternative, especially in the face of competition while generating capacity plan, because market share losses could be permanent. And although low sale are not found in capacity plan of commercial organizations, and capacity could be perennially found to be below the requirement in case of many infrastructural facilities. This could be seen in power, public transportation, telephones, water supply, and other facilities. And even for commercial organization, when there are sudden spurts in demand growth, there may be no alternative to meeting the demand through low sales, which amount to absorbing a loss of possible contribution. Multiple and anti-cyclic output, as mentioned above, multiple output increases the stability of demand growth, and each output being in a different phase of its respective product life cycle. And the demand for some output shows decline, that of other could be in their growth phase, and consequently the overall capacity requirement will have much less fluctuation that for any one output. And a similar concept is useful even when the demand for an output is highly seasonal and varies widely during the course of a year. If possible, the addition of an anti-cyclic output can help in stabilizing the capacity requirement throughout the year. And the demand for electric fan is highly seasonal, with the peak occurring in summer and the sale is in winter coming close to nil. And if convectors which requires similar production process are added to the product range, and the capacity requirement throughout the year will be more stable, as the demand for heat convectors peak in winter, and electric fans and heat convectors are therefore anticyclic, and the addition of anticyclic output makes it possible to have better capacity plans. Evaluation of alternate capacity plans. The alternate capacity plan developed will have to be analyzed to find the one which is most desirable for our purpose. And this involves a quantitative analysis to find the economic consequences of different capacity plans based on the assumption made regarding what is going to happen in future. And however, there are uncertainties regarding future, as well as many strategic effects flowing from capacity plans, all of which cannot be quantified precisely. And that is why there is a need for quantitative assessment of the risks and other strategic consequences. Economic analysis for mature output with the stable demand growth. Establishment of capacity is always an investment, and the return from it occur over a period of time. And that is why kind of discounted cash flow analysis has to be used, so that the alternative capacity plan can be compared. And for each alternative capacity plan, the general procedure requires that all the EA cash flow occurring in different years up to planning horizon have to be listed, and all the costs incurred are cash outflow, and the revenue earned are cash inflow. When all these cash flows are discounted at the cost of capital for the enterprises, we get the net present value, that is NPV, for each capacity plan. So each capacity plan having the highest NPV will be the most attractive from an economic perspective. And the basic methodology can be expanded by adding to the list of alternative capacity plan to take care of different locations. Example is here. And next is economic analysis for output with the highly uncertain demand growth. When the demand growth is highly uncertain, the consequent inflow from any capacity plan are not reliable enough to make any conclusion. And in such a cases, knowledge of the probability distribution of demand is quite useful. And in the absence of the detailed distribution, the one need to know the optimistic expected and pessimistic prediction of demand. For each of this scenario, the NPV for each alternate capacity plan can be computed, and different and appropriate capacity plan can turn out to be the most economic under each of this scenario. And a more formal approach for such a situation involves using a decision tree to analyze the various alternate plans. Both the alternatives and the uncertain outcome are shown on the decision tree. Probabilities are assigned to each of the uncertain outcome, and finally the tree is folded back to find the best capacity strategy, which results in the highest value of some criterion like the expected NPV. When the demand growth is highly uncertain, the choice of capacity plan is highly dependent on the strategic effect of having an over or an under capacity. And the risk analysis of alternate capacity plan. All capacity plans are based on prediction of probable demand, and the future can never be predicted exactly. And thus, there is always some element of risk present in any planning process. And what we have said above is that the risks are higher in the case of new output than in the case of mature output with the stable demand. And if demand cannot be predicted exactly, the actual demand will either be low or higher than the predicted demand. The first case, we are likely to be burdened with the overcapacity, and in the second, even where we are likely to suffer from an undercapacity. And we should analyze the likely consequences of both overcapacity and undercapacity. In each of the following situation, the organization may plan for having an overcapacity rather than the undercapacity if A is there are some minimum economic capacity size, and below which the process become uneconomic. And the next is the cost involved in establishing capacity is relatively low, and subcontracting is very difficult or impossible, and the lead time required to establish new capacity is very long, and the demand growth is more likely to be nearer the optimistic prediction than the pessimistic one. And cost sales are perceived by the trade very negatively and may amount to more to a more than proportionate drop in the market share. And on the other hand, the organization may plan to add capacity on a conversation basis in each of the following situation. If a alternative source of capacity are easily available, and the cost involved in establishing capacity is relatively low, and the lead time required to establish new capacity is relatively short, and the customer are either expected to wait, or the lost sales have no long term consequences if the demand cannot be satisfied. And it is difficult to quantify many of the strategic consequences from having an undercapacity or a overcapacity. And what is important is to assess how this influence the competitive stability of the organization. Okay, so that is about this chapter, and summary is here. And we define capacity as the limiting capacity of a productive unit to produce. In case of homogeneous output, the capacity can be expressed in unit of output per unit of time. And however, when the output are not homogeneous, the availability of the limiting resource is used to measure capacity. And also listed an 8-step process of capacity planning. And while generating alternate and capacity plan, the two primary factors are the size of capacity addition and the timing of such an additions. And it is necessary to know the alternate source of capacity, cost volume relations, and economic of scale, and the effect of lost sales while generating capacity plan. And both quantitative and qualitative analysis have their role while analyzing the alternate capacity plans and recommended for implementation. Keyword sections are here, and also the self assessment questions. Please try to do it, it will help you for your term and examination. Like your assignment, it's also important. Okay, and in between any doubts, you can contact us. And this is about today's section. For more videos of MBA series, you just do like, share, and subscribe our channel. Thank you so much.
i-tutor Academy presents Ignoumba MBA complete syllabus coverage classes for individual students, semester-wise subject with online and flexible timing. For more details, contact on +916 238 217 885.